Ken Dorsey was fired today, man. One of my favorite rap groups of all time asked the question, who's going to take the weight? Clearly, Sean McDermott can't take the full weight. So let's discuss that. That seamlessly transitions right into our gym dropping session today. You ready? I am. Let's do it. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, last night, Bills dropped to 500 on the season, the 24-22 loss at the hands of the Denver Broncos. I said last night during the stream that the Buffalo Bills, have been the most disappointing team this season, and it's not close. There are other teams that we thought would be better than they've been this season. Maybe have gotten off to a slow start. Cincinnati comes to mind. They had a built-in excuse with Joe Burrow's calf. The Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Chargers are two other teams that kind of stick out like a sore thumb. You expected more from them, but the Vikings have gotten their act together in mysterious ways. Still don't know how they managed to get to 6-4 at this point of the season with everything that's gone wrong for them. But yet here they are. No Justin Jefferson, no Kirk Cousins, no problem. You know? And then there's the Buffalo Bills. You know? One of the teams that we viewed as a Super Bowl contender heading into the season. The loss against the Jets in week 1, little disconcerting, but it's family business. Shit happens. We'll chalk it up to what happens in the family stays in the family. Okay, let's move on. The next 3 weeks, they score 38, 37, and 48. So, not really tripping. They're fine. Okay, they're fine. Haven't scored 30 in a game since that 48-point explosion on the then undefeated Miami Dolphins. They've had losses to teams like Jacksonville, and I get it, Jacksonville's 6-3 right now, one of the better teams in the AFC, yada, yada, yada. But when they lost to Jacksonville, they weren't this iteration of Jacksonville. They were just starting to try to figure shit out. So they kind of felt like they were sleepwalking that entire game against Jacksonville. They were definitely asleep for the first half over in London. They lose to the Jaguars. As I mentioned already, an ugly loss in week 1 to the Jets. Just, it can't happen, right? But it did. You should have lost to the Giants. Wow, what an ugly performance that was. The Patriots can't seem to beat anybody, but they beat you. Last second drive by Mac Jones puts the Patriots in the win column and another one in the right-hand column for the Buffalo Bills. That one stung, but again, hey, family business. We know how the family do it, right? We talk about this all the time. If two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And if it's not your family business, I suggest you stay out of it. So that's what I tend to do. It's not my family business. I'm going to stay out of it. But then there's this game, right? And losing to the Bengals on the road, that's respectable. Okay? That's respectable. You don't have to do it, but that's a loss we look at and we say, I can see that happening. So this was one of those games that was supposed to be a bounce back. The football gods set it up so that after that tough loss on the road on a Sunday night to Cincinnati, you're supposed to bounce back at home against the Denver Broncos, right? This is when you get your shit together. You got a tough stretch coming up. Here's a bit of a prep game. It's almost like a boxer who broke his hand last fight, has been out of the ring for a year, right? So there's naturally some ring rust, right? So you want to knock that off before you see the likes of the Eagles and the Chiefs and some of the better teams in the league. So yeah, let's get you a tune-up fight. Somebody you can beat up on, feel good about yourself. And now we can get you talking about some of those championship fights again. Some of those big boys that, you got to face if you want to be considered pound for pound one of the best. This was supposed to be that game for the Buffalo Bills. Got Kansas City and got the Eagles coming up. Got a tough stretch. Really need to stretch the arms out a bit. Yeah. Stretch the legs out. Flex a little muscle. Get back on track and get ready for these good football teams we got to play here down the stretch. And you turned it over 4 times. Had a back-breaking penalty with 12 men on the field after the game-winning kick was missed. And you had a number of missed opportunities throughout the course of the night. Now, it's funny being a fan of a team that constantly lets down its fan base. You tend to notice certain trends, right? And a lot of times with bad teams or, teams that aren't having the success that they feel like they should, it's usually different parts of the team taking turns to help you meet your demise consistently. I always listen to a good friend of mine or a guy that I've really taken a strong liking to over my years of doing this. Name's Craig. He is a contributor on a channel called The Lightning Round over on a channel that primarily focuses on the Chargers. Craig is a Chargers fan. Shout out to my guy, Craig Smith. And I always watch his show. I got 5 on it. And he gives you 5 takes that he has for the upcoming week. Some things from maybe the past week. And then as they move forward into the next week regarding the Chargers and how he's feeling at the time. And I enjoy that thoroughly. And I listen to him talk about his Chargers because I've always said, if you think you got it bad as a Commanders fan, just look at Chargers fans. And while they have a quarterback and they went to the playoffs last year, they also went to the playoffs and blew a 27-point lead. It doesn't get any worse. I'd rather just sit at home. I don't need to go to the playoffs to blow a 27-point lead. That's excruciating. But if you want to talk excruciating, go talk to Chargers fans. We think we got it bad. We don't have it. It's not even close compared to how bad they've got it. Because we were stuck with bad ownership for a long time, but we've just got rid of ours. Their bad ownership isn't going anywhere. They're stuck in mediocrity. They got a really good quarterback. They don't know how to win. They lose to teams they're not supposed to. They make their fans sweat it out every single week. When they do win, usually, they did just beat up on the Bears. That was fun, I bet, for Chargers fans. And, every now and again, it's nice to get one of those. But long story short, he talked about how one of his points a couple of weeks ago on the I Got 5 on it was equal opportunity sucks, or equal opportunity suck, I think it was called. And essentially he was talking about each phase of the team taking turns sucking and helping lead to defeat. And as a Commanders fan, I can't help but feel that way. And I talk about it all the time, how different factions of the team. One week it may be special teams, like last week in particular, snaps weren't great, missed an extra point, ultimately put you in a position where the game was tied instead of you being up 1. Again, they went down, got the game-winning field goal. Some people say it didn't matter anyway. They were going to score anyway. I beg to differ, but we can agree to disagree, okay? I think it's a much different game when you're up 1 versus tied. Just me, which is why I would have gone for 2, but that's nor here nor there. we shouldn't have had to do that because we should have had 27 because we shouldn't be missing extra points. But that happened, and whether it was because of a bad snap or our kicker just didn't make it, I think it was probably more of the bad snap. Doesn't matter. It happened. Special teams hurt us, right? There were games earlier in the season where we're giving up big punt returns and we're missing kicks and all kinds of shit. Special teams hurt us. There's weeks where special teams steps up, i.e. Atlanta. Big return from Jamison Crowder. He ends up being special teams player of the week. There's weeks where the defense steps up, right? Arizona game, week 1. Turned the faucet off on the Denver Broncos after starting off terribly. Really, that's not a week you would want to mention the defense. They weren't good that week, okay? But they did have a stretch in that game where 6 straight possessions of nothing for Denver, right? And, you can find little spaces. The Atlanta game, 3 interceptions or 3 turnovers forced in that game. You win the ball game. Defense stepped up, made plays. And then there's the offense, right? There's games like Buffalo where the offense doesn't give you a fighting chance. The game against the Giants, the offense didn't give you a chance. And then there's weeks where, if not for the offense, we either lose or we're not even in the game. So it's like everybody takes their turn. And with Buffalo, I feel like it's the same thing, right? They're taking turns as to who's to blame for this week's debacle. And I think that's a common thread, and maybe it's a common denominator with teams that are struggling. Because one week with Buffalo, they're missing field goals, and they got a really good kicker in Tyler Bass. But, early in the season, I think he struggled a bit. If I'm not mistaken, the Jets game in week 1, I think he struggled. Then you got weeks where the offense can't get out of its own way. Josh Allen is turning the football over. The Jets game in week 1, prime example. The game on Monday night yesterday, prime example, right? They can't get out of their own way. The Giants game, they turned it over. Then there are weeks where the defense is the culprit, particularly at the end of a ball game. The Patriots game comes to mind. Right? I talked about special teams letting them down. The Jets game, they give up the punt return in overtime for the game winner, right? Like, it's huge. But, there's games where the defense doesn't carry their weight, right? As I just mentioned, the Patriots game at the end, prime example, almost gave it up against the Giants at the end of that ball game. Probably should have given it up. Almost gave it up to Tampa at the end of that ball game, right? They're not closing out games the way that they should. Cincinnati game, all they needed was one stop at the very end. Couldn't get it, right? So it's a continuous theme with them defensively. They may play well for the vast majority of the game, but when they need their defense the most, they don't step up. They needed them. The offense did exactly what they did against the Patriots. At the end of the game, they needed a touchdown to take the lead. And what does the offense do? They walk it down the field. They get the touchdown. They take the lead, and they tell the defense, we just need one stop. The defense couldn't get the stop against the Patriots. Mac Jones takes them down the field, and they lose 29-25. Josh Allen takes the team down the field. The Broncos are trying their hardest to lose this game. They missed the extra point because of a bad snap. The hold isn't any better. And it's 21-15 instead of 22-15. They had already missed an extra point earlier in the game. So this score shouldn't even be 22. It should be 23-15, but it's 21 because that's what teams with a losing record, that's what they do. They give you a chance to beat them. As a wise man once told me, more games in this league are lost than they are won. And the Broncos are trying to actively lose this game. So, of course, naturally, the Bills go right down the field. Now, did we see 7 straight runs, not a single pass, being the reason that they would score on what at that time was the lead taking touchdown? The go-ahead score at the time? No, we didn't see that. But that's what happened. They take the lead. They're up 1, and all they need is a stop. course, they don't get it. Now, in that game, we talked about it last night. I thought Sean McDermott was way too aggressive. You rushed, you cover zero blitzed on 2nd and 5 because they were approaching field goal range, and you got a sack for 5 yards and brought up 3rd and 10. You did what you were trying to do. They don't have any more timeouts. You defend the sidelines and you defend the sticks. You keep them in a box, so to speak, and you don't let Russell Wilson run for the first down, and you don't let him throw for the first down, and you don't let him throw to an outbreaking route getting out of bounds to stop the clock. You force them short of the sticks, in bounds, and they are going to have to run their field goal unit onto the field because they can't spike it because it's 4th down, and they're going to have to kick into a crosswind from 50 some odd yards. Good luck. They're going to need it. Instead, he doubles down on the zero blitz and gives up a defensive pass interference. I thought it was over aggressiveness on the part of head coach Sean McDermott, who is now calling the defense because their former defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier, stepped away. So we wake up today. If you were lucky enough to get you a nice little midday nap, you woke up and Bills offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey is fired. And last night, we had a conversation surrounding Dorsey, surrounding McDermott, Josh Allen, et cetera, because when you're 5-5 and you were expected to be one of the best teams in the league, people need answers. I love this conversation. One of my favorite rap groups of all time asked the question, who's going to take the weight? Clearly, Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Bills, he can't carry the full weight, right? He can't carry the whole weight. It wasn't Ken Dorsey that called the cover zero blitz at the end of the game that left Taron Johnson one-on-one with Jerry Jeudy, gets cooked off the line of scrimmage, and Russell Wilson throws up a YOLO ball, but Taron Johnson doesn't get his head around and gets flagged for PI that puts him in chip shot field goal range. That wasn't Ken Dorsey who did that. Ken Dorsey, last time I checked, didn't throw a check down or a swing route to James Cook, on the first play of the game and have the ball stripped from him. Again, I'm just recollecting the game last night. Did Ken Dorsey throw the football to Gabe Davis and it go right through his hands into the hands of Justin Simmons? Did he do that? What about the fumble that Josh Allen had when all he was doing was handing the ball off to James Cook, and for whatever reason, it just slipped out of his hands? Did Dorsey do that too? How about the game-winning drive, or what we thought was the game-winning drive? Did he not call 7 runs in a row? Now, I get it. That's been one of the criticisms of Ken Dorsey, especially last year in particular. He didn't run the ball enough. Man ran it 7 times in a row right down the field for a touchdown. He did his job. How about week 7 against the Patriots? Yeah, offense wasn't great all day, but when they needed the offense to be great, it was. They scored the touchdown. They took the lead. What happened? Why didn't you win? Was that the fault of the offense? Look, numbers don't always tell the story. And I always tell you, people say this all the time, numbers, people lie, numbers don't, or numbers don't lie, people do, right? You hear that all the time. I always like to say you can skew numbers to tell whatever story you want them to tell. You want to slide the narrative in this direction, you can take the numbers and you can fold them and contort them and shape them into whatever narrative you want them to paint, the picture that you're trying to illustrate. These are as cut and dry as it gets. Now, there's always further context, specifically in the NFL, when you talk about statistics, team statistics, and what they mean. But these are some of the most important offensive statistics that we have in this game. Bills offensive statistics under former offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. Overall, they're ranked third in offense. I don't love that stat because it's usually predicated on yards per game. That's a sucky stat because you can rack up the yards, get to the 17-yard line, or rack up the yards and get to the 7-yard line, or rack up the yards and get to the 5 and not get into the end zone. That doesn't do you any good. But that's not what the Bills are doing. Hey, let me finish. Let me continue, okay? Third ranked offense in the NFL this year. Why is that significant? They're 8th in scoring offense. So this third ranked offense in terms of yards per game is getting you the 8th most points in the league right now. Now, also take into consideration, they've played 10 games. Some teams have only played 9. That is something to factor in. And while it can help you in certain instances, can bring other teams' average down, can also help you if you scored a boatload of points and you add in another game, right? For the Bills, it really doesn't matter all that much. They're 8th in scoring offense. Just take it for what it's worth, okay? Here are some big ones, though. They're 2nd in third down efficiency in the NFL. 2nd in third down efficiency. The biggest down in the entire game, and they're the 2nd best team in the NFL offensively when it matters the most on third downs. Which leads you to having the 3rd most yards in the league offensively, and it leads you into the red zone quite a bit. If you're converting on third downs and you're racking up the yards, that usually lends itself to you getting in the red zone, where they're the 3rd best offense in the league in red zone efficiency, which leads you to be 8th in the NFL in scoring offense, which overall puts you as the 3rd best offense in football. Do you see where I'm going here? I'm not here to tell you, and Bills fans can explain this a lot better than I can, and they can tell you all of the deficiencies with Ken Dorsey's play calling and all the things that they don't like and all the little idiosyncrasies that have troubled them and bother them about Ken Dorsey as an offensive play caller. I'm just giving you the numbers, and I've watched Bills games this season, and what I'm telling you is it's not just Ken Dorsey. Once again, who's going to take the weight? You know what this reeks of? Y'all know I got a big nose. And when I start sniffing, I smell some bullshit. Yes, I do. You know what this reeks of? This reeks of a head coach on a last-ditch effort to save his own ass. You know when you smell the bullshit. It reeks. I've seen it so many times, and I know the stench. You know how detectives know immediately it's a dead body around here. They've worked enough cases, they've smelt enough rotting, decaying flesh to know what that scent is. I'm the same way with head coaching bullshit like this. We generally call this a scapegoat. Or, as I like to call it, who's going to take the weight? Sean McDermott is looking to deflect because he's not getting it done. And there are reasons as to why, whether it's the injuries that are starting to mount, specifically on the defensive side of football. There's been some injuries on the offensive side too. The inability of some of the guys that you've brought in, whether it be Von Miller or, some of the draft picks you've spent. Brandon Beane is a guy that is becoming public enemy number one very quickly in Buffalo. Can't fire the GM, right? Can't fire the defensive coordinator because, oops, that's the head coach. He's calling the plays. So who are we going to blame? Can't blame Josh Allen, even though he's the one throwing interceptions and fumbling. And let me just state this very clearly. I'm a Josh Allen fan. And any conversation surrounding Josh Allen, be careful when you're talking about Josh Allen in my presence. Okay? Look, there's enough blame to go around, and a lot of it deserves to be squarely in the lap of Josh Allen. I'm not debating that. But understand who Josh Allen is and where he is in this league. The Bills aren't the Bills without Josh Allen. What are we talking about? But in that same vein, the Bills probably aren't 5-5 if Josh Allen isn't turning over the football. He leads the NFL in interceptions. Again, did Ken Dorsey do that? Or did Josh Allen? And again, not all interceptions are created equal. Last night's a great example. The first interception of the game for Josh Allen, he can't throw the football any better than he did. It went right now. He threw it. That was a 105-mile-an-hour fastball, guys. Let's be honest here. But it's not like Gabe Davis was 6 yards in front of him. Okay? He put some gas on that thing, though. Hot sauce to go. And Josh Allen has what we call easy gas. He reared back. That thing had rocket jets on the back of that thing, and Gabe Davis wasn't ready. His mind was ready, his hands were not. That's not on Josh Allen, but it's going to be charged to his account. You know? That's almost like fraud. That's like fraudulent activity on your account. Like, I didn't get gas at a Citco in Decatur. What is this charge on my account? Look, that may not have been you, and you can dispute the charge, but it's on your account. Sorry. The second pick, though, the one right before the half, that's all on Josh Allen. Like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? You can't do that. Neither one of those did I mention once Ken Dorsey. Those contribute to you losing the game. And again, when they needed Ken Dorsey to be at his best, 7 straight runs, touchdown, take the lead. The guy that's supposed to make the 22 points hold up, the head coach, who's also the de facto defensive coordinator, didn't get it done. Who's going to take the weight? Sean McDermott essentially pressed the panic button today with this firing. There's nobody else left to take the blame. There's nobody else left to take the weight. If this season doesn't end in a Bills playoff berth and a win, he's going to be fired, and this move screams of desperation. It reeks of panic, and I gotta save my ass. Brandon Beane hasn't been good of late. Sean McDermott hasn't been good of late. You're the head coach, yet 12 men are on the field. You know what? Somebody asked this question yesterday, and he said, this may be a dumb question. And it wasn't a dumb question. It's a great question, because last time I checked, aren't you supposed to have a chance to match any substitutions that happen? Okay. It's not my problem that you don't have a timeout on 4th down after you take a knee or you run a play and you don't have a timeout and now you have to run your field goal unit onto the field. That's not my problem as the defense. You're running your unit onto the field. I should have a chance to match that. And I shouldn't have to rush. I should have enough time to make sure that I don't have 12 guys on the field when you go to kick, not because the game's on the line and time's running out, that you should let this go quickly. You should stand right over that football and give me the adequate amount of time I need to make sure that my 11 guys, not my 12 or my 10, but my 11 guys are on the field and that we're all on the same page. That didn't happen. It was so helter-skelter. The officials let all hell break loose instead of them standing over the football like they usually do in situations that the offense decides to make a change to personnel on the field. So I would love the NFL to explain in those types of situations what's supposed to occur. Nobody explained it. Nobody brought it up. Troy Aikman, Joe Buck, nobody said anything about that during the telecast. They've got an ex-official there with them that they could have consulted and said, hey, aren't they supposed to have a chance to make the switch? I didn't hear any of that. Maybe I missed it. Maybe they talked about it. I didn't hear any of that. I just know that with the game on the line, knowing that they did it in the first half, knowing that there was a great chance that they would do it again, you weren't prepared and you had 12 guys on the field. I guess that was Ken Dorsey's fault too. It wasn't bad enough that he, in the last time that the offense had the ball, took it down the field and scored. And for the second time this season, you, as the defensive coordinator, weren't good enough to get the stop to preserve the victory. So I guess it's Ken Dorsey's fault that you didn't score 30 or 27 or 25 instead of 22, and it wasn't enough because the offense turned it over 4 times. Guess that was Ken Dorsey's fault too. Guess it was Ken Dorsey's fault when Josh Allen took the offense down the field to take the lead with just a shade under 2 minutes left in the game against the Patriots, and Mac Jones a minute and 40 seconds later is in, tossing a touchdown pass in the end zone to give the Patriots the victory. I guess that was Ken Dorsey's fault too, because they didn't score 30 that game as well. How about the Giants game? Yeah, they scored 14. That sucks. Was it his fault after they took a 5-point lead that you let the Giants walk the football all the way down the field, get a pass interference, and have the ball with an untimed down at the 1-yard line? Is that Ken Dorsey's fault too? Anyway, this firing signals us collectively as NFL fans, but Bills fans in particular, taking the hourglass, turning it upside down. You're officially on the clock, Sean McDermott. If your Bills don't make the playoffs, the sand is going to run out on your tenure in Buffalo. This was, for all intents and purposes, a sleight of hand trick. Don't look at me. Here's the culprit over here. Here's your scapegoat. Here's the guy that's going to take the weight. Jay-Z always talks about his best friend, Emery, who took the weight. You saw the movie with Biggie, and they both got busted. 1 gun, 2 suspects. Somebody's got to take the weight. Biggie's boy said, "Hey, you got a budding career. You go make something of yourself, man. I got this." He took the gun charge. Unfortunately, Ken Dorsey didn't have any say-so in this one. He had to take the weight. Sean McDermott better make this firing turn shit around for him, or he'll be next.
LouieTeeNetwork.